I did some calculations this week. You'll be interested in this. So I was, bored. So I thought there were two things that happened this week that involved the spending of public money. And so I thought you'd be interested to know where the government spending goes. So I saw two things. One is there was a car that pulled up next to me, and it was from the Glen Iris City Council. And the way I knew it was from the Glen Iris City Council is all surrounding the car. It had Glen Iris City Council, electric car, reducing emissions, doing our bit for the environment. Now, it was probably a wrap, right? Like some vinyl that had been put, it wasn't painted, but that's $10K probably. And so this is $10,000 wrapped around. It wasn't an expensive car. It was some like probably $40,000 electric car. It's this $10,000 worth of livery wrapped around a $40,000 electric car, telling the taxpayers, the ratepayers of Glen Ira, ironically, it wasn't in Glen Ira when I saw it, telling the ratepayers of Glen Ira that, don't worry, your money is being well used because we're reducing emissions. I think that is just indicative of the wasted money that gets spent on. There would be a million better things to spend that $10,000 on. So that annoyed me a bit. I whined to my daughter about that. She was sitting next to me. She agreed. And then I heard this ad on the radio, which you might have already heard. This ad has been on for a while, which is the government's ad on how you can reduce fuel consumption. Have you heard that ad on the radio?
I have not heard that ad.
Mike, you heard that ad?
I have heard it, and I remember it feeling very patronizing and like out of touch.
Well, welcome to the bureaucracy. But, the bureaucracy never runs ads that says, thank you to taxpayers for funding our salaries. I've never heard that ad. But this ad has the following advice. Now, you might think this is just going to be a slamming of the government, but you'll be surprised about where this conversation goes. So the ad has the following exceptionally patronizing advice. It starts off telling you that we're in a fuel crisis. Okay, thanks for giving us that information. And then it says, this is what you can do to reduce your fuel consumption. I'll summarize. Pump up your tyres and take stuff out of your boot. And don't fill up your car more than you need to, which you can't afford to do anyway. And don't drive in places you don't have to go. Catch public transport. Okay, this is good advice. And so I started doing some calculations. Is that good? Like, what would actually be the difference? And so I went to a few different large language models to try and figure out. And I asked this question to the models. If I pumped up, how many cars are there in Australia kind of thing? We worked through that. Imagine that I had flat tyres that were at 28 PSI, not super flat, and I pumped them up to 32 PSI, which is normal. And imagine I had 50 kilograms in my boot. That's a bit excessive, but let's try and
dead body in there or something.
It's a small person's dead body, probably 50 kilos, or half a dead body. We don't want to speculate.
You've chopped it up already. You just got like a couple of legs in there.
I don't want to go into my modus operandi on the podcast. and so what would happen if we took all of those out? And then I fixed the tyres and took the stuff out of the boot. And then it was like, well, what percentage of the population would be doing that? And I would generously said, what if 1 in 50 cars on the road of Australia went through that process? I think that's probably many more than would do it.
It's more like 1 in 1,000, but yeah.
Or 1 in a trillion, right? But let's say it was 1 in 50, right? And so how much fuel would that save every week? And you know what the answer to that is? How many litres of fuel do you think it would save if 2% of cars on the road pumped up their tyres from 28 to 32 PSI and remove 50 kilos from their boot? That's a pretty dramatic. 2% of all cars, how many litres a week would that save?
I don't know about litres, but as a percentage, it'd be in the single digit basis points, I would have thought.
Well, so it would save 1 million litres a week.
Yeah.
1 million. Australia consumes, you know how many litres of fuel get consumed in Australia a week?
Oh, there'd be a lot of industrial consumption, but simply people sort of call it regular people driving. Let's say there's 15 million cars on the road. I'm just guessing. I have no idea how many. I say 15 million cars.
There's more than that. I think
20
there's 27 million.
Well, it can't be that many more because the kids don't have cars. And
I know, but I'm just telling you how many cars. There's 20-something million cars.
Okay, there's 20 million cars driving.
You can't avoid... But why are you cutting out industrial use?
Yeah, no, I'm going to factor industrials after that. I'm just trying to think of non-industrial use.
I didn't realize you were going to do this from first principles. Should we play some music and come back once you've done the maths?
Some thinking music. So 20 million people. The average person probably uses, say, 30 litres a week.
The answer starts with a 1. I'll give you a tip. It's not 1 litre, but it starts with a 1, and there's some number of zeros. It saves
a million. You say a million litres? Is that what you've already said? I can't remember what you actually said in the first one. We all
saves
confused by this whole thing.
Litres. I mean, I don't know where we're going with this. So I'll summarize. It saves 1 million litres. How many litres do we use? That also starts with a 1. How many litres
100
do we use
million
in Australia?
litres do we lose?
1 billion.
1 billion?
Litres.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a lot of diesel as well. 1 billion litres.
It must be a lot of industrial use then.
1.2, I think it's 1.2 billion. And how many days of total fuel does Australia have stored?
30 or something now?
Nailed it. So we probably have 1.5 billion litres stored, but we've got some more diesel problems than we do petrol problems.
And aviation fuel
So
problems.
we've got that. And so you might say 1 million litres a week, like that doesn't sound like very much fuel saving. How does that make any difference? And then you might say this ad campaign runs for 15 weeks. How does 15 million litres make a difference? It doesn't make much of a difference, 15 million litres. And in a sense, you'd be right with your cynicism about that. In the grand scheme of government wastage, it's actually not too bad. So hear me out on this thesis. The first is every 100 million litres of fuel that gets brought into Australia on a tanker, every excess, it does make a difference. Like we do care a lot about 100 million litres coming in, but more consequentially, think about this maths. You know how much that campaign costs? They don't say how long it's running for, but I just said 13 to 15 weeks, like 1 quarter, let's say. You know how much that campaign cost? What's your guess?
$10 million.
Oh, not bad. 20 mil. That's a $20 million campaign. Pumping the economy, by the way.
Yeah.
Pump it into the radio industry and possibly somewhere else. And so let's say you say 15 million litres for $20 million. It's only a bit over $1 a litre. And if you actually were able to save that, that wouldn't be the worst return on your money. Like $1 a litre is a pretty good price to pay for petrol. They're effectively buying petrol at $1 a litre.
Well, I think a much better idea was your much maligned free public transport, which is, I reckon, would have saved far more petrol, actually. So it's one of the very few things I ever agree with the Victorian government on was this free, and of course they're removing it now, but that was actually a bizarrely good idea that they executed pretty well, I reckon. Because it's partly also because they overcapitalised public transport, but given that, it was the least bad option from there.
They halved public transport prices now. They were free and now they're halved. Exactly. You know that they haven't because it's election. Can't charge full price with an election coming up. So I thought that wasn't the dumbest use of money. Now the skepticism is, I think possibly something in the vicinity of 0 people will do anything as a consequence of that ad, which might be a mathematical issue with this formula, but. But I didn't. It wasn't the dumbest spending, and I think the challenge is this: the federal government, they didn't cause the war in Iran. In fact, they didn't even participate in the war in Iran because if we take the 3 good ships that we've got and we send them to Iran, it will have no good ships pretty quickly because we can't shoot down drones. So we didn't even participate, and so the federal government can't really fix the fuel crisis at all. But they got rid of the excise that reduced the price temporarily.
Well, of course, removing the fuel excise has the exact opposite effect because it obviously makes petrol cheaper, so more people use it. So they should actually have been increasing the excise if they really want to reduce fuel use. But this is a government that cares much more about votes than actual economic policies, clearly.
Exactly. The main difference between them and you is that you get paid whether or not people like you. But they don't.
Arguably, I get paid more when people don't like me. That's the pipe.
Yeah, well, that's why you're so rich. And so, so that was my bit of maths calculation that I did this week.